Keurig Dr Pepper, ticker KDP, is currently trading at $32.67, and after their first quarter earnings call, the stock is down by almost 7.5%. Now, over the past 6 months, the stock is down by 10.5%. If we have a look at the maximum graph, we can see that in 2018, KDP fell from $122 all the way down to $27.71 due to the loss of Fiji, which was once a part of the KDP company. Now, even though this large drop in stock price might seem scary, KDP is still one of the biggest sellers of packaged soft drinks and beverages, comparable to companies such as Coca-Cola and Pepsi. Now, when we jump to tip ranks, we can see that the analysts currently have a 17.85% upside for KDP, predicting a price of $38.50 by the end of 2023, with the company having 6 buy ratings, 5 hold ratings, and 0 sell ratings. Now, to find whether KDP is really a buy at its current trading price, we will jump over to my fully automatic stock valuation spreadsheets, where we will have a look at the 9-pillar analysis and calculate the intrinsic value of KDP using the Graham's formula revised, discounted cash flow model, multiples valuation model, and the dividend discount model. And all these models will lead to our ultimate valuation at the end of the video. Now, when we jump back to the stock screener and plug in the ticker KDP, right away, all the metrics will show up automatically. Now, right away, we can see that the dividend yield of KDP is sitting at 2.45%, which is a very decent starting dividend yield. And the dividend payout is $0.80 per share per year, with a payout ratio of 75.21%. The institutional ownership of KDP is sitting at 56%, and the beta is sitting at 0.57, which means that you will not see much volatility with this company compared to the volatility of the overall market. Now, the analysts also project a price of $38.10 by the end of 2023, which is about $6 higher than the current trading price. Now, we can jump to the 9-pillar analysis and have a more closer look at KDP. We can see that over the past few years, the revenue, free cash flow, and net income have all been growing. And if we scroll down to the financials, we can have a more closer look and see that indeed net income grew from $703 million to $1.4 billion in 2022. Similarly, revenue and free cash flow. Now, if we scroll back up, we can see that the 5-year P ratio and the price to free cash flow over the past 5 years are both sitting above the values that we generally like to see, which is not great, but it is not a huge red flag either. But now we can move to calculating the intrinsic value of KDP. First, using the Graham's formula revised, we'll plug in the ticker KDP and all the metrics will show up automatically. Now, to get the intrinsic value, we take the earnings per share, which we multiply by the average yield on AA Corporation bonds, and we multiply everything by the sum of the base PE and the multiple of the 5-year growth estimate and the growth rate multiplier. We then divide that by the current yield on AA Corporation bonds and get the intrinsic value of $45.10, which is about 28% higher than the current trading price. But now we can move to our next valuation model, the discount cash flow model. Here I have already plugged in the ticker KDP, and as you can see, the free cash flow of the past 10 years shows up automatically, calculating an average annual growth rate of 21.42%. Now, for the next years, I project a growth rate of 6.85%, and using that projected growth rate, I predict a future free cash flow over the next 10 years. Now, to calculate the present value of that future free cash flow, we need to calculate the discount rate, which we get using the WACC and the 9-pillar analysis we have done prior. We then sum up all that future free cash flow, add any cash and cash equivalents, subtract total debt, and get an equity value of $53,000, which we divide by the shares outstanding and get an intrinsic value of $37.93, slightly higher than the current trading price. Now, one thing I just want to point out here is KDP's excellent free cash flow growth rate over the past 10 years or so, which leads me to believe that the free cash flow will keep rising into the near future. But now let's jump to our next valuation model, the multiples valuation model. Here I will be comparing KDP to Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and MSNT, or Monster Beverage Corporation. I took these companies' current stock prices and divided by their current earnings per share to get their price to EPS. I then averaged out that PE ratio and multiplied by the earnings per share of KDP to get an intrinsic value of $29.85. Now, this intrinsic value is slightly lower than the current trading price of KDP, which tells us that KDP might be slightly overvalued based on their earnings per share when compared to companies in the same sector. But now let's move to our final valuation model, the dividend discount model. Here I will plug in the ticker KDP, and as you can see, the dividend payout over the past 5 years shows up automatically, calculating the average growth rate to be at negative 17.98%. Now this is due to the large drop in dividend in 2019 after the large stock price drop in 2018. But if we have a look at the dividend growth through the years 2020 to the year 2022, we can see that the dividend has indeed been increasing, and therefore I project a growth rate of 5.7%. And as KDP does pay out its dividends quarterly, we will plug in a yearly dividend frequency of 4. Now we take the next year's dividend and divide by the WACC negative the projected growth rate to get an intrinsic value of $35.52, about $3 higher than the current trading price of KDP. Now that we have completed all 4 valuation models, we can move to our final valuation model where we average out the Graham's formula, multiples valuation model, discounted cash flow model, and the dividend discount valuation model to get an intrinsic value of $38.10, about 16.63% higher than the current trading price. Now I currently do not own KDP in my personal portfolio, but I do have it on my watch list. Now if you would like to download these spreadsheets, you can access them at my Patreon at the link in the descriptions. With that, if you like the video, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing as it helps out the channel a lot.